I was attending a Cub Scout recruiting workshop. Considering who I am, it's not surprising that I began talking to another woman as we walked from the parking lot down the Scout Camp Road to the dining hall. It was natural to share where we were from, what packs we were representing, and again, no surprise, I told her I was the pastor of the First Congregational Church in Bristol. Turned out that her former pastor was someone I knew. Nice little chit-chat with a stranger as we walked together. And then it got really interesting, because the woman said it was this former pastor who had brought her back to the heart of God. Intrigued, and wishing the road was a little longer, I listened as the woman told me about growing up in the church where her grandfather had been the senior pastor. She went on to tell me that there had been church drama. There had been great hurt done by members of the congregation to her and to her family. So she left the church, and she left God, and she never looked back. Until this pastor came along and brought her back to the heart of God. The woman's story made me glad, because how can you not be glad to hear that someone has been reconnected with God and Christian community? And the woman's story made me sad, because her story of church drama and church hurt is all too common. Our own church history is filled with stories of pastors being bullied into leaving the church or ministry altogether, as well as stories of church members being bullied out of the church and away from God. I hope that for every person who has ever been bullied out of a church, that there is a Christian out there that helps bring them back to the heart of God. But that's the wrong thing to hope. What I actually hope is that when the bullies of the world, within the church and beyond the church, when the bullies of the world act up and act out, spreading their drama and hate and hurt, what I hope happens is that we, as Christ's witnesses, we as Christ's hands and heart and voice, that we speak up loudly and boldly and say no. No, I will not be a part of your drama. No, I will not join you in talking badly about someone. No, I will not listen to you talk badly about someone and give you the impression that your hate talk is okay. No, I will not ignore your bad behavior, allowing it to continue. No matter our age, we often don't stand up to bullies because we don't want trouble. We don't want them to start causing us trouble. It feels safer, easier to just put our head down and stay quiet. And then there is that whole Christian thing. Christians are supposed to be nice, right? Christians don't get loud or angry or confrontational, right? Wrong. Jesus was not a doormat. Jesus didn't turn his back on bad behavior or ignore injustice. Jesus was bold. Jesus was courageous. Jesus spoke up, and sometimes quite loudly, on behalf of those who experienced injustice and unkindness. And through the generations, so have Christ's followers. 800 years ago, Thomas Aquinas wrote, "A praiseworthy person is angry about the right things, at the right people, and in due moderation, since they are angry as they should be, when they should be, and as long as they should be." It's okay to be angry. It's even praiseworthy to be angry, as long as it is about the right things, at the right people, for the right length of time. And bullying and abuse, prejudice and discrimination are the right things to be angry about. The fact that bullies and abusers have often been abused and bullied themselves is important to acknowledge, and yet it does not give them the right to hurt and bully others, passing on that brokenness. Instead, Jesus calls us to pray for them and set a boundary saying, no, this behavior is not acceptable. Thomas Aquinas was not the only Christian encouraging us to be bold like Jesus. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, a Lutheran pastor and theologian, stood up against Hitler and was hanged for doing so. And he wrote, Christianity stands or falls with its revolutionary protest against violence, arbitrariness, and pride of power, and with its pleas for the weak. Christians are doing too little to make these points clear rather than too much. Christendom adjusts itself far too easily to the worship of power. Christians should give more offense, shock the world far more than they are doing now. Christians should take a stronger stand in favor of the weak. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, even as he faced death, encouraged us to be revolutionary, to shock the world with Christ's love as we boldly stand with the oppressed, the powerless, and the weak. And Pope John Paul II, upon being allowed by the communist government to return for a brief visit to Poland, boldly told his fellow Poles, our future will depend on how many people are mature enough to be nonconformist. Courageous, revolutionary, transformative, bold. Jesus was all of these things, and he continues to invite his followers to be the same so we can create God's beloved community here on earth. However, the church has not been as courageous or bold as often as we should be. As the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King discovered, too often the church has been the arch defender of the status quo. We mirror the bad behavior of society instead of challenging it. We ignore the injustice of the world instead of protesting against it. We stand quietly by as people are bullied, demeaned, and mistreated, believing or pretending that a good Christian avoids conflict at all costs. This was not Jesus' way. This is not Jesus' way. Jesus didn't conform to his world. Jesus transformed the world. Jesus told us with his words and with his actions that it isn't power, the way the world sees power, that is truly powerful. It is service. It is love. It is peace and justice. It is giving of your life to others and for the sake of others that places you at the right and left hand of Jesus. The world needs us. The world needs Christ's faithful witness. The world needs us to speak up and to speak out on behalf of kindness, on behalf of justice, on behalf of compassion, on behalf of love. Our world desperately needs us to be courageous and bold as we connect people to the heart of God and turn the world right side up for all. Amen.